Let's talk about BigQuery versus BigTable. Now, on the exam, actually, no matter what exam you take pretty much with Google Cloud, you're going to be challenged to know the difference between BigQuery and BigTable. Now, we talked about what these applications are. Now, what we want to do is bring together these similarities and differences and make sure that you know some of the key factoids before you take the exam. Now, we know that BigQuery is Google's cloud-based data warehouse solution. It's different than BigTable in a lot of different respects. BigQuery really is meant for you to scale to petabytes, and it's meant to be a data warehouse pretty much for analytics. It's also serverless. Basically, you collect your data, you go ahead and import it in, ask questions against it. That's what BigQuery is. BigTable, on the other hand, was really meant to be a core database. Now, Google uses BigTable for their services on the back end, for example. Now, Google really invests in their infrastructure, and this is one of those areas that they clearly invested in. For example, BigTable was built on what was called the Google File System. Now, you don't need to know this for the exam, but there's a really nice white paper for those that are interested called BigTable, a distributed storage system for structured data. Take a look at that. It goes into how they use BigTable for Google Search, Google Maps, Gmail, etc. It was actually designed to be a NoSQL architecture as well. But the goal, of course, for BigTable is that you can go ahead and allow your application to read and write data and scale it at the same time. Now, it is low latency. It was designed, though, to be OLTP versus BigQuery, which is more of an OLAP-based situation. So when you're considering queries, for example, or your data sets, I should say, OLTP queries are really supported on BigTable, whereas BigQuery was really meant for OLAP style queries. And you could also scan against those data sets as well. With that said, definitely go into the exam knowing the main differences. This is perhaps, I think, the most confusing part of the exam, or content for the exam, I should say. Couple other points I want to point out to prepare you for the exam. Know that BigTable can be integrated with other tools. Cloud Data Flow, Dataproc, for example. BigTable is also the foundation for Cloud Data Store. So basically, Cloud Data Store was sort of built off of BigTable to a degree as well. Now, if we want to get into a scaling contest, BigQuery will, of course, scale, but if you're looking for performance, then BigTable is likely the way to go. Now, again, it all depends on the use case that you're being presented to make that decision, but just realize that that's generally what we want to consider, at least at a high level. So make sure we know the use cases, we know the base technicals. Don't want you to be this person on the exam getting all frustrated because you just didn't remember how to differentiate BigQuery and BigTable in your memory before you took the exam. So memorizing these differences is going to be critical because they're going to be asking questions that are going to be very similar to what I just sort of talked about, as far as if you're looking to scale an application or integrate it with another Google service like Dataflow, what would you recommend? Once again, it's all about knowing some of these little details. Understand BigQuery is a data warehouse. BigTable's meant to be a database, more or less. So with that said, just try to memorize these differences. It's extremely easy to get confused by their similar names. Lastly, I can't reiterate this enough. Go through the decision tree that's listed there under the storage options. Make sure you can, in your mind, know the differences. Okay, let's move on.